company, we have access to capital, we have great brands.
No, beautiful question. Yeah, I can tell you, we believe that we'll be able to reduce costs.
ET is one of my favorites in the world. I'm a fan.
This is a very insightful question that you're asking, Nikunj, and almost seems like you were listening in on the deliberation the committee was doing. And you're absolutely right.
And if this cup of coffee is costing you 25 rupees right now, after 5 years, it may cost you 100 rupees. Predicting the market or predicting the short-term move in the market, well, that's always very easy. Predicting it right and making money, it's not impossible. It could be a challenge.
See, Nikunj, you are a very seasoned market observer, and therefore you may hit the nail on the head.
I think you have always kept the focus on the retail investor, and I think it's again a very apt, very good question.
Nikunj, first of all, thank you so much. You are one person I've always enjoyed interacting throughout last 15-20 years.
You know, the problem on coming on your channel is that you already know everything. I just heard your introduction. And what can anybody add to that?
Stock markets is a numbers game, and it sometimes does come across as one-dimensional. But what people don't see is that these numbers, when strung together, tell a story. There's no really black or white. It very much seems to be a work in progress of triumphs and mistakes, greed and fear. And I bring you that story behind the numbers in action.
The personal finance show that helps you achieve all your financial dreams.
This show gets you everything that you need to know about your money, how to earn more, invest smartly, and spend while getting the best bang for your buck.
From the perfect home to early retirement and everything in between.
Real estate, everyone knows, is an asset that Indians absolutely...
Welcome back. Actually, you're watching Buy Now Sell on ET now, and yes, you have Sensex that is come back above that 54,000 mark. But what's the next level of support and resistance for the benchmark? Let me go across to Kunal and ask him that. And Kunal, what is the next level of support and resistance that you're seeing for Sensex?
So, last week also we were discussing this point that 53,500 is a good support for Sensex, and the index should bounce off from those levels. So we've seen that happening for Sensex, where the indices have bounced back above that 53,500 mark. The next level of resistance now on the upside is 54,500, which also coincides with approximately 16,275 on the Nifty on the spot level. So possibly if we break above that 54,500 mark on Sensex, we should be looking at possibly another 1,000 points on the upside. So that's how important the support and the resistances are placed for the index.
Okay. It's time to start the viewer queries, and quite a few of them have already piled in. Just a quick pointer, if you're tuning in for the first time, you can send us a query on any one of our social media platforms or indeed on the WhatsApp number. Just tell us your name, tell us the stock that you'd like to know about and the time frame that you'd like to hold it for. If you bought it, tell us what level you bought it at. The first couple of questions that I have in front of me are short-term in nature. So I'm going to take the first one from Rajeshwari. She's asking about Goa Carbon, and she's asking whether she can enter at the current level. She's looking for a short-term perspective, Kunal, and she's also looking for a target that you would look at in the short term.
See, I think generally I would not recommend Goa Carbon as a pure positional play. But then the last 1 week, the chart structures have improved quite a lot for the stock. From I would say sub 400 levels, the stock at one point had come back to 500 odd levels for itself last week, and then gone into a patch of consolidation. What has happened is that the volumes in this leg of rally and then a mild consolidation has improved significantly for the stock. So the average volumes earlier was just about some 20,000, 25,000 or slightly less than that as well, and that has now shifted up higher to almost 1.5 lakhs for Goa Carbon. So that's why I believe that probably from a trading play, you can look at buying the stock at current levels, and even if you keep a short-term kind of a time frame, I think the previous high, which was 500, could be a decent target for the stock, which should be at least 10%, 12% from current levels. So I would suggest a buy. 500 could be a target, and stop loss you can keep it closer to 428 mark.
All right, actually even I have a lot of short-term queries actually piling in, but let me take this one from Yogesh, and this one is on HUL. And Sharmila, this one is for you. He's saying that he's asking whether it's a good time to enter HUL at levels of around 2,500 for the longer term, and if not, if there's any other FMCG counter that he could invest in for the longer term.
Well, I like almost quite a lot of stocks in the FMCG basket because, a couple of reasons. One is, of course, that it's a defensive. So that's always a great play to be in, especially when markets have been choppy the way they have been for the past 3-4 months. Then again, I think then the other reason, of course, is that, at the start of the year, if you remember the kind of commentary that we were getting from a lot of FMCG companies, they were quite concerned with the way inflation was. And this was really a global situation, and they were seeing this reflected across geographies for them. But I think now we are in a cycle where we are saying that, in another 3 or 4 months, inflation could be sort of under control, which I think would be a good thing for a lot of these FMCG companies. And from an Indian perspective, I think, we have just seen a spectacular sort of a monsoon July, where we've had like a huge catch up, and, the southwest monsoons do play a very big role, especially where the rural economy is concerned. And there has been a bit of a slowdown there for FMCG companies. So yes, I think I would be positive on HUL, but yes, you need to keep your view long term because the valuations are fairly high. So yes, HUL, Godrej Consumer, Dabur, these are some of the stocks that I've been positive on.
We've got a question coming in on RCF, and this one's coming in from Sunil. This one's for you, Kunal, and he's pointing out that he bought at levels of 99 with the hope, or with I think he was given advice, and a target was given of 125. I believe a stop loss was also suggested. He says that he doesn't blame anyone for the fact that it declined from that point because he didn't follow the stop loss. But he's asking, from this point, what should his strategy be? Can he recover his buy price? And what fresh levels would you watch for?
So I would recommend that you can hold on to the stock at current levels, but the averaging opportunity for the stock would be closer to 75, 74 levels for RCF. So assuming if the stock corrects and say comes back towards 74, 75, I would suggest that you can look to average. That would probably help you bring the cost or your average cost to almost levels of 80, 86, 87 on RCF, and that would probably help you get into the break-even point much sooner rather than waiting for the stock to come back above the 100 mark, which I believe could probably be taking some time for the stock. So a better suggestion would be to try and look out for averaging out for RCF around that 75 mark, and then let the stock come back towards 87 mark, which could be a new average, and that's where you can look to exit.
Okay, Kunal Maleshwar wants to know whether he can buy Laurus Labs and KEC International at current prices for the short term, either KEC International or Laurus Labs.
So I think both the stocks, I'd recommended, in fact, Laurus Labs and KEC consistently over the last 1 week as a short-term strategies. My expectation, was that both these stocks should start to get into a turnaround mode. So they've done pretty well for themselves. They've hit, most of the targets which had aligned for themselves. Now, when these stocks are getting into a slight corrective mode, I would suggest that out of the two, KEC could actually turn out to be a much better play and a much better bet because the breakout which had happened for KEC last week, I think on Monday or Tuesday, when the stock had jumped up 10%, that was a very strong and a formidable breakout. So that sets in the stage or support for KEC around 450 mark. So assuming if the stock corrects over the next 1 or 2 days and comes back towards that 450, 455 kind of a territory, that would be a zone where you should look to buy.
All right. Shrikant's got a question, and this one is to you, Sharmila, and this is on Tech Mahindra. He's bought at levels of 1648 and he's got 256 shares of this counter. What's the view on this one? We've spoken about large cap IT companies quite a bit, but I guess Tech Mahindra has not been the focus so far. What would you say about this particular holding?
Yes, I think he can continue to hold. The stock seems to be at a very decent valuation. And I don't think quarter numbers are out yet, so you need to wait for those for sure. But the stock looks good, honestly, so I would continue to hold.
Now, Omkar wants to know about Berger Paints, a short to medium term view, but he wants to know whether he should look to buy it at current market price.
So short term wise, I would suggest an avoid. If you have a time frame which is just about say a couple of weeks or less than that, then I would suggest an avoid on Berger Paints. And the pure reason for that is because the crude oil prices are still not settling at the sub 100 mark, Brent crude prices. So if there is any sudden spike in crude oil prices, say possibly over the next 1 or 2 weeks, there is possibility that Berger Paints and such other peers, they could get into a corrective phase. And even if you look at the charts over the last 3 to 4 weeks, there has not been any major comeback or a rally in prices. The stock has gone into a very sideways and a very dull kind of a trading range. So there is lack of momentum, as well as there is always a probability that if crude oil spikes further, then you could probably expect Berger Paint to get into a further sell-off mode. So that's why I would suggest an avoid.
Okay, we've got a question coming in from Raghu. He's writing in from Pondicherry, or Puducherry as it's now called. L&T Finance is the name of the counter, and he's bought this share already. He has bought at levels of 70, which is very close to the current market price. He's bought a significant quantity of 5,000 shares. What's the view, Sharmila, on the fundamentals of this stock?
Well, very sort of a neutral rating. This space has been through some amount of. It's not done that well for itself in this last year or so, and this is not my favorite stock in this space. But I think I think he can continue to hold. Maybe expect levels of closer to 85.
All right, this one is coming from Mukil, and this one is specifically for you, Kunal. He's saying that he has Time Techno Plus, about 1,000 shares, purchased at 108 rupees per share, and he wants to know what sort of a short-term target should he look at for this particular counter. Do you track this one?
Well, I do track this one, and I think it's a very good chart, even though the stock over the last 1.5 to 2 years from the COVID lows, it's done reasonably well from I think, if I'm not wrong, the March 2020 low for Time Techno was around 2022 levels, and the stock has gone 5x from those levels. But I believe even from current levels of 110, it looks very attractive to me on the charts. It's on the verge of a breakout yet again on the multi-month, multi-year basis, even though the stock is much below its all-time high levels. But I believe that there's a significant room on the upside for the stock. Now, the only question which I have is that whether you'd want to keep these kind of trending names into more of trading baskets. That could be the biggest mismatch which you could probably have in stocks like Time Techno Plus, because the stocks, they generally tend to do pretty well on long-term basis. So my only suggestion would be to try and convert your time horizon from being very, very short-term oriented to look out for at least another couple of years to get maximum returns into the stock.
Okay, Mawana Supermarket is the name of the person who's writing in. Well, asking about HDFC Bank, so I'm going to ask you to reiterate your view, Sharmila. I think you've got a buy on the counter, just for the purposes of our viewer. He's asking about a view on HDFC Bank.
Yes, as I said earlier, I'm positive on the stock, and if he wants to buy, definitely he can look to buy, but he needs to be invested in the stock for the long term.
All right, Kunal, one more your way, and this one is from Subhash. 240 shares of Navneet Education purchased at 104 rupees per share. He wants to know whether he should average it or sell this counter.
No, I think no need to sell the stock. I think it's a decent chart. It's consolidating. It's come back towards the midpoint of the range. So 80 and 105, 110 is the range for Navneet Education, and I think the stock is at 94 odd levels. So it's come back towards the midpoint of this trading range. Ideally, what you should be doing is if the stock happens to come back into a corrective zone and assumingly comes to the lower end of the price range, which is closer to that 80-85 mark, that could be a point where you can look to average. And once the stock comes closer to 100 plus levels, 104 trading range, I think that's a range where you can look to exit. So you can keep on trading and dabbling into this trading range for Navneet Education for at least the next couple of months.
Okay, just a small pointer to our viewers. We do not encourage questions on penny stocks, and generally our experts do not have views on these stocks either. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question on Aditya Birla Sun Life, and this is a question from Deepak Kukreja. He's bought at levels of 640, and he's asking when he can see some return on his investment. Sharmila, on the fundamentals, from the perspective of the business, would you suggest holding on, and what's the outlook like?
On the business front, there don't seem to be any concerns. I think this is a mutual fund that's doing reasonably well. The problem has been that this entire AMC space has not really given they've not really given any returns over this last year or so. So to start with, the businesses were a little overvalued, and a case was being made, and I think rightly so, that you would see further addition of investors as you go ahead, because we are really, in terms of the number of retail investors we have for a country of our size, we are pretty much at the starting point, so to speak. And the pandemic did seem to have spurred a lot of new investors into the market, and which is why everybody was so positive on both brokerage stocks as well as AMC stocks. And we've seen both of them sort of taking a beating over this last 6-7 months, as we've seen retail sort of interest waning a little. So I think you need to be little sort of long-term in your approach if you want to enter into AMC companies for now, because probably they are sort of a niche play, and they're not the flavor of the market, so to speak.
All right. Actually, we took a query on Berger Paints with a short-term view, but Ramachandran wants to know on the fundamentals. How does Berger Paints look to you, Sharmila? He's planning to hold on to this counter for the next 4 to 5 years. Also wants to know whether he can add some more at these levels. No doubt, Kunal has given that view already on Berger Paints. But what's your take on the fundamentals?
For sure, but I think if he's long term, he can continue to hold. I think the only negative that I can say, that I can think of for Berger Paints and painting as a sector, is the fact that competition has really sort of picked up in this space. So if you had 3 or 4 companies, Asian Paints, Berger, Kansai, Nerolac, now you've heard of a couple of more. I think JSW and a couple of more people have said that they're going to start, that they're going to enter the paint space. So there does seem to be a hint of competition, as well as the unpredictability of crude prices, as has been demonstrated over the last couple of years. So you need to get a better sense that this is finally cooling off. You need to get a better sense as to the situation in Russia, Ukraine, etc. So I wouldn't be in a hurry to have it. But I think if you're long term, you can definitely continue to hold.
Sant's got a question on Federal Bank, and he's got at levels of 99.8. Kunal, he's seeking a short-term target on the stock, and is it a good stock to hold in the short term?
So it's a good stock to hold in a short term. In fact, over the last 1 week, as well as today morning, I had given this as one of my buy in the mid cap segment as well. 104 is where I've placed a short term target for Federal Bank, and that could, my time frame is the next 3 to 4 days. So I would probably keep that as a short term target for Federal Bank. If you have a slightly higher time frame, which means possibly a fortnight or more than that, then you can extend the targets on the upside to 106, 108 for Federal Bank.
All right, Kunal, this one is coming in from, this one is from Digambar Rao. 200 shares of IOC is what he's holding, but he's not told us his buy price or anything else apart from that. So what should he do with this counter, IOC?
Exit, I would suggest to exit the stock. I don't think it makes sense to hold on to this underperformer. The only concern with stocks like the OMC name specifically is the fact that these stocks have been big underperformers in various market cycles, and I think they lack significant momentum for themselves. So in best of the times, these stocks they get into sideways, and the worst of the times, these stocks they get into a correction, and that's typically not a kind of a trend which you would be looking out for when you're looking to buy the stock or even time this from an investment perspective. So looking at the current charts, I would suggest an avoid.
All right. We've got apologies. R. Srikantan, who's asking a question. He's writing from Chennai, and he's asking about Adani Power, which he's bought at levels of 160. Can it be sold at the current juncture, Kunal, or is it likely to go up further?
Yeah, I think I had mentioned this last week as well on the same show, that Adani Power and such names should be held on from just a pure short-term or a trading play. They should not be part of your core portfolio. If you get a profit of 50%, 60%, or so on and so forth, I think that's a good strategy where you can look to either trail your stop losses significantly higher at a point where even if the stock breaks that level, you are okay to try taking out profits from the stock price. So since you are sitting into good profits, I would suggest either you can book out 50% of your holdings at current levels and then look to trail your stop losses, say closer to 260 odd mark, or you can look out to book full profits at current levels as well.
Okay, Sharmila, this query is coming your way, and this one is coming in from Mohammad Afzal. 400 shares of Wipro is what he has, purchased at 483 rupees per share. He wants a long-term perspective, and for how long should he wait for the stock to cross his buying levels? But what's your take coming in on Wipro?
It actually is my least favorite stock among the top 4 or 5 IT companies in the country. So my order would be perhaps TCS, HCL Tech, Infosys, maybe even Tech Mahindra in ahead of Wipro. So it's not a bad stock. It's just that in comparison to these other stocks, I like it less. But he can stay invested. Let's wait for the numbers. The numbers are on 20th. So let's take a call of averaging or anything, that sort of thing after that. But whatever stock, whatever shares he has, he can continue to hold.
Okay. We've got a question coming in from Captain Ram Rao. He's writing in from Pune. And Sharmila, this is a viewer or an investor that has acquired stocks at very attractive levels and has held for the long term. I do not know when he acquired Gujarat Ambuja Exports, but he's bought at levels of 27.1. And so therefore my guess is that he bought at least around 2016, if not before that. And so therefore he's asking, he's holding about 150 shares of the counter. On the fundamentals, should he keep holding or should he book some profits?
There doesn't seem to be any concern, so you can definitely continue to hold.
All right, this one is from Joy Manoj, and Alkyl Amines, 24 shares, purchased at 3,250 rupees per share. He wants to know whether he should average. He's a long-term investor. What's your take on this one, Kunal?
Well, yeah, I think you can look to average at current levels. I think the stock has gone to a reasonable correction from 4,250 levels. The stock is back towards that 2,500, 600 mark for itself. And that's a sizable correction for a stock like Alkyl Amines. And I would suggest that you can look to average at current zone.
Okay. Akash from Delhi is asking about a fresh entry into Apar industry. And this one's for you, Kunal. So he's asking for a 1 to 2 month view on the counter. What's your take?
See, I think the stock has done reasonably well over the last, I think, 3 months or so. The stock has risen from 600 levels to 1,000 plus where it's currently trading now. If you are already holding the stock, then I would suggest that you can look to maybe book out 70-75% of your profits over here and keep the balance and then look out for entry opportunities in case the stock gets into a corrective phase. For fresh buying, I would suggest an avoid because it doesn't make sense when the stock rallies up so swiftly in a short span of time. The indicators get into an overbought zone and the risk reward is not favorable. So you could probably be sitting into a risk reward where you could be looking at an upside of maybe 100 rupees on the stock from current levels, but the downside could also be 100 rupees to 150 rupees. So that favorable risk reward is not there for initiating fresh longs. If you're already holding, I would suggest keep a trailing stop loss and look to hold on.
Sharmila, Exide Industries is the counter, and Jaira Shetty wants a fundamental view on this particular stock. I'm not sure whether he's invested or he's looking to invest in this one.
Yeah, so I think this stock has been a little disappointing in the sense that it hasn't really done anything much over this last 3 or 4 years. But it's a decent stock in terms of the earnings and overall the fact that we seem to be selling enough number of cars, so battery is an important component. And we have only really 2 listed players. We have Amara Raja and Exide. I think Amara Raja gets better valuation. But I would think that from current levels, Exide has a decent upside. So I would continue to hold.
Kunal, I had to, I must admit, I had to read this question twice just to be sure that I was reading it right. Sunny on Twitter wants to know whether Nifty 50 can fall below 15,300 in a week or so.
Let's hope not. It doesn't happen and your expectation and forecast comes out to be absolutely wrong. I'm bullish on the indices and I'm expecting the index to stay up higher. 15,900 has been a support for the index, and I believe till the time we hold about that 15,900 mark, there should not be any panic reason for any kind of a bulls.
No, I don't think that it's a forecast. It certainly isn't mine, and I'm hoping that Sunny is just looking for the worst possible scenario and whether that's going to happen. And clearly, Kunal doesn't think that's going to happen. Cheryl?
Yeah, right. Moving on, this one is from Shankar Yadav, Sharmila, and he wants to know whether he should look to buy Zomato for the long term now.
It's not without risk, but I think if you are thinking long term, then maybe you can. So yeah, I mean, go ahead, but as long as you have a long term view.
Right. Let's take the next one. This one is from Karthik. And Karthik wants a fundamental view on Trident, Sharmila. He wants to know whether it's a good buy for the longer term.
So, this has again been a sort of an interesting space where you're talking of textiles and textile exports. Again, I think perhaps not my favorite stock in the space, so I would avoid it.
I'm actually going to come back to you, Sharmila, on this one because we haven't really spoken about realty in a bit. Godrej Properties is the name of the counter. Deepak Dave from Gandhinagar is asking about this. He's bought at levels of 1520 and he's saying that he's a long-term investor. Should he average his buy price at this current juncture?
I wouldn't advise averaging, but because I think the stock has sort of recovered from the lows that it made, so I don't think that this is the right price to average. But I would continue to hold what I have.
All right, Kunal, a tricky one for you. Oh no, not so tricky one for you actually. This one is from Abhinay and he's asking, will there be any rally in SpiceJet stock price? Can he buy at this point of time? Or should he continue to hold on to the stocks that he's purchased at the levels of 40 rupees per share?
Well, a disclaimer, I think all questions are tricky, Cheryl. But then I think for SpiceJet specifically, I don't see any major revival coming into the stock. You look at the last 6 months, 12 months of charts, and you try and compare this with the best listed peer, which is Interglobe Aviation or Indigo. Indigo has its own, had its own period of strong outperformance and a rally for itself. And in that kind of a zone as well, SpiceJet continued to correct. I remember, I think I tracked in the stock when it was almost at 74, 75 levels, I think end of 2021 or start of 2022. And even from those levels, the stock had gone into a further correction and dropped almost 50% from those levels. And compared this with Interglobe Aviation as well, the stock seems to have underperformed significantly. So I would expect that, in fact, I would probably suggest that many of the viewers as well, that if you're looking to buy these kind of underperforming stocks, there has to be a substantial turnaround which happens into the stock, whether it's in terms of volumes or it's in terms of indicators. As of now, there is nothing which is visible on the charts for SpiceJet. I would suggest an avoid.
Okay, so a bit of a difficult question is being asked by Mr. Vinod Kumar Verma. He says that he's a central government employee, is going to retire in the near future. He's got a corpus that he saved up for his retirement. And he's also looking to enter into the share market right now. He says that his monthly SIP is nearly 40,000 rupees a month in mutual funds. He's wondering whether he should close it and enter into individual stocks. He's saying that his initial budget, Sharmila, is 5 lakh rupees for the long-term perspective. He's a first-time investor. So, first of all, would you suggest that he make that switch immediately, or how would you suggest that he navigate this? Because I think he might have more time on his hands. He might be able to track things in more detail. How would you ask him to start that journey?
Yeah, so start small. If he's interested in stocks and he wants to switch to direct investing, why not? But I think the approach has to be similar to what he was doing with mutual funds, which is SIP. Since he's a first-time investor, I would recommend that he look at large-cap stocks to start with. And once he builds a good base of large-cap stocks, again, on an SIP basis, then start looking at good mid-caps as well. And then even over there, sort of do an SIP, but really think long-term, so that, when the next sort of big rally happens in the market, you're nicely positioned and you bought good stocks at decent levels. So take a very slow and steady sort of an approach, and say, suppose your starting budget is 5 lakhs, I wouldn't invest all 5 lakhs in one go. I would do a very piecemeal approach. I would maybe do 5 tranches or even more, 6 tranches, and look at stocks at that point in time and what I think can outperform. To give you An example, for instance, we've had a lot of IT results, but Tata Elxsi in the mid cap gave very good results, and you had L&T Infotech, which sort of suggested that things could get better for them. So from a price perspective, I feel just now that L&T Infotech can give you better returns than Tata Elxsi. So those kind of calls you need to make at that point in time, that what stock is price is correct to enter, and what can do better. But all these things, as Kunal was saying earlier, are not without risk. So you need to keep that in mind. And I would really recommend that you look at good quality stocks and go slow.
All right. This next one is coming from Shobna, and she's writing to us from Chennai. She's holding 45 shares of Latent View since IPO. She wants to know whether she should hold, add, or sell. Since it's a fairly recently listed counter, I'll come to you on this one, Sharmila.
I think she can continue to hold.
This one's also for you. Kiran Chopra, who's writing in from Lucknow, says he's a senior citizen and he says, love you guys. Thank you so much for the kind words. Kiran, we love you too. And we're going to take your question to Sharmila. He's looking for a 3 to 5 year view, and he's looking at the banking sector. He is invested in a number of stocks, and he's asking which of these he should put more money into, Sharmila. These are all frontline counters: ICICI Bank, State Bank of India, HDFC Bank and Axis Bank. What's the view?
So I like all. He can take his he can take his pick, because I think if you were to talk of PSU banks, I think SBI is the name that suggests itself. We've just spoken of HDFC Bank. I do like ICICI Bank. Perhaps my least favorite stock out of all these would be Axis Bank. But that being said, it's not a stock. There's nothing wrong. I mean, the numbers especially etc. are very good. So yes, I think you can add to all four.
Okay, this one is coming from Hemanta Datta, and KPR Mills is a counter that he's purchased. 591 is the buy price, Kunal. He wants to know what should he do with this counter now.
I think we should hold on if possible, and if you have additional capital at play, then I believe adding on to the stock at the sub 500 mark could also be a good strategy. I think it's a quality stock, has done reasonably well over the last 3 to 4 years specifically, and I think after a correction from 700, 750 odd mark, the stock, which has dropped down to almost 500 levels, I think it's a very attractive territory as well. So buy on dips closer to that 500 mark is what I would suggest for KPR Mills.
Okay. So a bit of a complicated question again, Sharmila, because completely different sectors. So Vinod from Bengaluru is asking about fertilizers and chemicals, Travancore, which he bought at a price of 131. The stock is currently trading just above 100. And he's asking whether to hold on or whether to average at this juncture, or whether to switch out from this into something like a Sumitomo Chemicals. Oh, sorry, no, my bad. It's the same thing, right? Same sector. So Sumitomo is the name of the counter.
So he has fertilizers and chemicals, and which he's bought at what price? 100.
31. And you're going to force me to say Sumitomo again, because that's a bit of a tongue twister for me. So he's asking whether he can buy it at this juncture. Should he switch out of fertilizer and chemical Travancore and buy Sumitomo?
Yes, I think he can. The numbers are, I prefer Sumitomo to fertilizers and chemicals. So if he wants to switch out, he can.
Like they say, right? Practice makes a man perfect.
Why don't you say it quickly 5 times?
No, I'm not going to. You perfected it now, so it's all yours, Alex, to say. I'm going to make sure the next time I get that query, I'm going to make you take it, knowing what has happened to you today. But let's get on with the next query then. And this one is coming from Sri Devi. And she wants to know whether she can buy NIIT Limited at current levels for the short and the long term. What's your take on this one, Kunal?
So I'm extremely bullish on the stock on the longer term play. Short term wise, I am not, I believe that possibly the stock can get into a further drag kind of a mode. Not major correction is what I'm expecting from current levels. But then I think at 350 odd mark, looking at the last 4 months of consistent price correction, the selling pressure is still not, or the selling pressure is still not out for the stock price. So it may continue to drag for some more time, but from a longer term play, the stock seems to be at a very attractive territory for you to enter if you have a time horizon of at least 1 to 2 years or more.
All right. It is time now to hit the rapid fire segment, and Kunal as well as Sharmila, you know the drill. Viewers, we're going to take as many of your questions as possible, so do stay do pay attention. The first one is from Siddharth. He's asking about Bajaj Financial Services, Bajaj Finance or Bharat Dynamics for 1 year. Which one would you pick, Kunal?
I would pick Bajaj Finance from current levels.
Okay, Dasaradi has Z Entertainment 100 shares purchased at 310 rupees per share. He wants to know whether he should hold, exit or average. What's the take, Sharmila?
I think he can continue to hold.
Reliance Industries at levels of 2625, 36 shares bought by TV Murli. Would you suggest holding for a year, Kunal?
Hold for a year, not to average at current levels. Short term wise, there should be more pain to the stock price. At least another 100 rupees of sell off is what I would expect from current zone.
Okay, this one is from Srinivas. Kunal, this one's for you. Cummins is the stock. 1,100 is the buy price for the next 3 to 6 months. What should he do?
I think from a short-term play, you should look to book out profits. The stock has a tendency of getting into a corrective mode. If it comes back to 1,050-60 levels, that could be a point where you can look to re-enter.
Kunal, good year for the very short term. Rajendra wants to know, would you suggest a fresh entry?
Well, not at current levels. The stock has run up high, way above its 200 moving average. Would expect the stock to get to a correction. 1,050 or lower than that could be a good entry point.
Okay, Venkateshwaran wants to know about Amara Raja batteries. Sharmila, we spoke about Exide. You liked Amara Raja, but can he buy now?
Oh yes, I think he can buy.
NLC bought at levels of 60.4. Any view on this, Sharmila?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have a...
Kunal, any view on this one?
So I do track the stock. Looks quite okay. Stock has broken about the 200 moving average today. I would suggest a hold.
Okay, Vishal wants to know whether it's good time to add TCS or wait for further correction. Looking at the long-term perspective, what's your take on this one, Kunal?
I think we discussed this in the chart busters as well. Extremely bullish on TCS from current levels. Good value buy from current zone. I would suggest a buy.
Okay, we got a viewer asking about Kalyan. Srinivas is asking about Kalyan Jewelers. Sharmila is got in IPO stage. Should he hold on?
Yes, I think he can continue to hold.
All right, and with that, we come to the end of the rapid fire as well as the query segment. Thank you so much, Sharmila, as well as Kunal, for joining us on the show, talking about HDFC Bank, as well as resolving viewer queries. And viewers, we will be back tomorrow. So in case we've not taken your queries today, don't be disheartened. 11 a.m. is when we will start the show, and we will start taking your queries as well. So you can write into us then as well. But for now, we'll take a break on this edition of Buy Now, Sell Now, with more news on the other side. So don't go anywhere.
We love, maybe even more than gold.
Join us every weekday at 5 p.m. on the ET Money Show. Investment made easy. Only on ET Now.
With each passing day, this market is becoming better. And with each passing day, this market is only telling you that if you've participated on every decline, you've actually made money.
ITC's credo is nation first, sab saath bade. I would like to live this philosophy in whatever business we do. We continue to be very well diversified across product lines. The general health of the company continues to be very strong. We are a publicly listed company. We have access to capital. We have great brands.
Now, beautiful question. Yeah, I can tell you, we believe that we'll be able to reduce costs.
ET is one of my favorites in the world. I'm a fan.
This is a very insightful question that you're asking, Nikund, and almost seems like you were listening in on the deliberation the committee was doing. And you're absolutely right.
And if this cup of coffee is costing you 25 rupees right now, after 5 years, it may cost you 100 rupees. Predicting the market or predicting the short-term move in the market, well, that's always very easy. Predicting it right and making money, it's not impossible,